What pushes a man to become one of Mexico's most notorious figures? Is it the desire for wealth, the chase for power, or the pain of losing everything he loves? This is the story of Héctor Luis Palma Salazar, known as El Güero Palma. He rose to prominence alongside Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, building an empire that made him a legend in the underworld. But his journey wasn't just about ambition. It was also about betrayal, heartbreak, revenge, and survival. A single tragedy would change his path forever and shape the man he became. El Güero Palma's story reminds us that behind every headline, there are human emotions, struggles, and choices that define a life. Welcome to the Narco Files. If you enjoy exploring untold stories from history and beyond, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. Early life in Sinaloa. Héctor Luis Palma Salazar was born on April 29, 1960, in Noria de Abajo, a small town in Mocorito, Sinaloa. Life there was tough. Like many children in the area, Palma grew up with very few opportunities and limited ways to improve his future. For many young men, the search for a better life often pushed them toward risky paths. Palma's first steps into that world were small but bold. As a teenager, he began getting involved in activities that brought fast money. This caught the attention of influential people who noticed his ambition and fearlessness. Before long, he was pulled deeper into a network where loyalty, trust, and survival determined everything. Every decision carried heavy consequences, and one wrong move could change everything. Working for Felix Gallardo. As time went on, Palma worked his way up and became a trusted figure under Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, the powerful leader of the Guadalajara organization in the 1980s. Felix Gallardo, often called El Padrino or the Godfather, controlled many of Mexico's key routes during that era. Palma gained wealth, influence, and respect while managing important responsibilities alongside Abelardo El Lobito Retamosa Machado. He also formed a close partnership with Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, who would later become one of Mexico's most well-known names. But life in this world was never secure. With power came constant threats, and true trust was hard to find. Palma quickly realized that betrayal could strike at any moment. Every decision was filled with risk, and loyalty was fragile. In this environment, a single wrong step could change everything. The lost cocaine, shipment, and new alliances. In 1988, Palma's life took a dramatic turn. A major shipment went missing, and both he and El Chapo were held responsible. In that world, losing such a fortune was considered unforgivable, and someone had to face the consequences. Palma's close partner, El Lobito Retamosa, lost his life, but Palma himself was spared. This shocking moment forced Palma to rethink his path. Soon after, he joined forces with El Chapo, and together they began building what would later be known as the Sinaloa Cartel. Their growing partnership put them in direct conflict with powerful rivals, including the Arellano Felix family, leaders of the Tijuana organization. By making this choice, Palma stepped deeper into one of Mexico's most dangerous power struggles, an environment defined by fragile loyalty, constant threats, and the need for both courage and strategy to survive. The family tragedy that changed everything. If there is one moment that truly defines Héctor El Güero Palma's life, it is the devastating loss of his family. In the late 1980s, Palma appeared to have it all: success, influence, and most importantly, a family he loved dearly. He was married to Guadalupe Leja Serrano, and together they had two young children, Jesus and Natalie. But everything changed when a man named Rafael Enrique Clavel entered the picture. Clavel, who had once been close to Palma's family, chose betrayal over loyalty. He convinced Palma's wife to take millions from Palma's accounts and leave with him. What followed was even more tragic. Guadalupe lost her life, and soon after, Palma's two children were also taken from him in a shocking act that stunned even those within the criminal world. This unimaginable loss shattered Palma. The grief and anger that followed pushed him further down a darker path, fueling decisions that would shape the rest of his life and cement his place in one of Mexico's most dangerous stories. A path of revenge, After the tragic loss of his wife and children, Hector El Güero Palma was consumed by grief. That sorrow soon turned into anger, and that anger drove him toward revenge. He began targeting those he believed were connected to Rafael Enrique Clavel or who had betrayed his trust. One of his first moves was going after Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo's lawyer, a bold message that no one was beyond reach. Palma's rage continued to grow. In a shocking act of retaliation, he set his sights on Clavel's own family. For Palma, it was the only way to balance the pain he had suffered, though even those within the criminal world were stunned by the extent of his response. Clavel himself was not spared. After his arrest and imprisonment, many assumed he would be safe behind bars. But Palma's reach was long, and even in prison, Clavel's fate eventually caught up with him. By this point, Palma was no longer the loyal soldier he had once been. The tragedy had hardened him, reshaping him into a figure both feared and respected. From then on, his life was defined by power struggles, dangerous alliances, and the constant shadow of retribution. Back in the drug trade with El Chapo, after the heartbreaking loss of his wife and children, Hector El Güero Palma threw himself completely into the life he had chosen. His pain seemed to fuel his ambition, pushing him to climb higher and faster. Alongside Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, he began shaping what would later be known as the Sinaloa Cartel, one of Mexico's most powerful organizations. Their focus was building roots into the United States, and Palma gained a reputation for being both strategic and highly organized. He was careful with planning and quick to act if anyone threatened their operations. With El Chapo as his partner, Palma helped expand an empire that became feared across Mexico and even beyond its borders. But as their influence grew, so did the risks. Rivals wanted to take their place, authorities pursued them relentlessly, and betrayal could come from anywhere. Palma had learned early on that in this world, power and danger always went hand in hand, and one wrong move could cost everything. First arrest in the United States. Hector El Güero. Palma's first major arrest came in 1978 in Arizona, where he was caught attempting to move contraband across the border. He was sentenced to 8 years in a U.S. prison. But when he was released, Palma didn't step away from that world. Instead, he returned determined to rebuild his influence. By the early 1990s, he had become a central figure within the Sinaloa Cartel, admired by his allies for his sharp mind and feared by his rivals for his uncompromising nature. His reputation was built on strategy, discipline, and the ability to rise back up stronger after every setback. The plane crash and second arrest. In June 1995, Hector El Güero Palma's life took a dramatic turn. He was traveling on a private Learjet to attend a wedding when the plane was forced to make an emergency landing. The landing was rough, but Palma survived. His freedom, however, did not last long. Mexican soldiers were already waiting and arrested him on the spot. Palma had tried to avoid capture by disguising himself in a federal judicial police uniform with a matching ID. It was a clever plan, but it didn't work. After years of being pursued, one of Mexico's most notorious figures was finally in custody. Extradition and life behind bars. After his capture, Palma was sent to the United States to face criminal charges. He spent 19 years in Atwater Federal Prison in California. When he completed his sentence in 2016, he was returned to Mexico, but freedom was short-lived. Upon arrival, he was taken back into custody, this time in connection with past cases dating back to 1995. Today, Palma remains in Altiplano Prison, one of Mexico's most secure facilities, still serving time for the choices that made him one of the country's most notorious figures. The Kingpin Act. Sanction. Palma's influence grew so great that even the U.S. government took direct action against him. On June 2, 2003, the Department of the Treasury added him to the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Act list. This decision froze all of his U.S.-based assets and made it illegal for any American individual or company to do business with him. For Palma, it was a major setback. It cut him off from money, resources, and valuable connections outside of Mexico, greatly reducing his international reach and influence. Corruption and protection. One reason Palma managed to survive and rise in such a dangerous world was corruption. He built strong connections within the Mexican Federal Judicial Police, which allowed him to move around freely and avoid capture for years. Palma often traveled in full police uniform with official identification, surrounded by officers for protection. At times, he even stayed in the homes of police commanders to hide from rivals or authorities. But the corruption didn't stop with the police. Even judges could be influenced. In one case, 18 men were caught with heavy weapons and protective gear. Yet a judge ruled there wasn't enough evidence to link them to organized crime and released them. This showed just how powerful Palma and the Sinaloa Cartel had become. They weren't just competing with rivals, they were also able to influence parts of the system itself. With police, judges, and officials swayed by money or fear, Palma operated almost untouchable for many years. Palma's legacy, Héctor Luis. Palma Salazar's life was marked by power, ambition, and devastating loss. He helped shape one of the most influential cartels in history, yet he also endured tragedies that would break most people. His story reveals the harsh reality of that world. Even the strongest are never safe from betrayal or pain. Palma's rise and fall prove that in the end, power always comes with a heavy price. Reflection. The story of Güero Palma shows the true cost of power. He rose to become one of the most well-known figures in Mexico's underworld, but it came at a terrible price: his wife, his children, his freedom, and even his peace of mind. It makes you wonder, was the power ever worth the pain? Can anyone truly win in a world built on betrayal and broken trust? Palma's life leaves us with these haunting questions. Thank you for watching the Narco Files. If this story gave you a new perspective, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with others who want to explore the hidden stories behind power and ambition.